Hello and a warm welcome to the very first episode of Hashtag Fitness Industry, the new podcast about the European and the German fitness market. My name is Andreas Bechler, and besides hosting this show, I am an author, consultant, and lecturer in our fine industry. While many of you may perhaps already know our German sister podcast, same name but written a little bit differently, we are launching this new English format today to provide also one DACH, also German-speaking countries, and EU perspective for the global fitness community. In today's premiere, we are diving straight into the biggest news we had in the last year. We'll discuss whether Hyrox is becoming perhaps the next German unicorn of the fitness industry. We are talking about the leadership shift at McFit under Gerd Schaller, the brother of the tragically died Rainer Schaller. And last but not least, we will talk about the strategic global moves of CleverFit now that they are bought by BasicFit. To analyze all of these, I'm very happy to be joined by a real industry expert and global networker. I want to say hello to my counterpart today. Hi, Hans Muench.
Good afternoon, Andreas. I'm happy to be part of your inaugural English podcast.
Yeah, thank you very much to be part of it. Perhaps a few of the listeners already know we already talked a few times in German now. So my mother tongue, we already have done a few times. Now we switch to English. I hope I can do it as perfect as you do it in German. So I do my very, very best. But first, Hans, I think most of the listeners should already know you, but perhaps for the few ones that do not, could you please just introduce yourself shortly?
Sure. I'm born and raised in Toronto, Canada, studied in the States, have lived most of my life in Europe, except for 5 years in Boston and a couple of years in Hong Kong. I have an MBA from the States, was the third employee of Life Fitness in Europe way back in '87, have worked on the club side, on the supplier side. I write for trade publications such as Body Media and for the Spanish Gym Factory portal. I work with clients that usually are expanding into other markets. So right now I have 2 Dutch clients, Virtua Gym and Benfit. I also have worked with a Spanish group called Weight Trainer that are now entering the German market, a German Spanish group called Kraftwerk that have about 34 clubs, been mentoring Daniel, and I also work with LuxFit, and I also had a long different phases working with the Health and Fitness Association, the World Health and Fitness Group that used to be known as IHRSA, IHRSA, and they changed their name 3 years ago and had their European Congress in Amsterdam this year. So I would say a 360-degree view of lectured with a German university. I give public speaking. Last time was in November in Jönköping, Sweden, and happy traveler as well.
Yeah, this is definitely right. Mostly we had already produced our past podcast together when Hans was always on the road. So now it's a very special thing to have him in home office and really having, let's say, a little bit more time. But we both know your wife is waiting for you. So we want to start now and get into the business of today. And let's take a look at our first topic. I already said we're talking now about Hyrox, in the one company that was once founded in Hamburg many years ago, not so many years ago, but it made a real big growth over the year. Yeah, but if you look at the numbers, in 2023, we were 175,000 people already participating in the Hyrox race. And for this year, 2025, where we are now producing the podcast, there are already a projected amount of 650,000 athletes in over 80 events all over the world. It's really a massive number, a massive growth they have so far. And if you look also at the gym network nowadays on the other side, you can also see that there's really a high demand from the people to do this kind of fitness race and to prepare for it. If you look at also here the numbers, over 5,000 affiliated gyms are now worldwide connected to Hyrox and Hyrox branded, have a Hyrox branded course program and everything. So really, really interesting. And on the other side, Hyrox is owned by a very, very big company in the sports business, Infront Sports and Media. And at the moment, there are rumors that another investor wants to buy Infront or part of Infront. And in there, Hyrox is, of course, one of their main assets that they want to sell. And that's why at the moment, we're also thinking about what value Hyrox has. And this, of course, gives us back to the point where we say, okay, Hyrox could be really now the next unicorn of the German industry after already other companies in Germany have gone so far. Especially if you look, for example, at eGym already has gone this step and also already achieved the unicorn status. But nowadays, Hyrox is perhaps only a few steps before that and will also reach it at the beginning of the next years. But so much for the number, so much for the key facts. Hans, what is your opinion on all of these, on Hyrox in total?
Well, Andreas, you may recall the first time that Hyrox was at the FIBO. I had an Australian client then who have 330 franchises, body fit training, and there was a degree of alignment there, very similar types of training. But it was interesting that then it was a bridge that was created to help Hyrox penetrate the Southeast Asian and Australian market, as well as helping body fit training get into the European market. They already had one or two locations in the UK, but were just gaining traction now. They're in several countries in Europe. So I think that sometimes it's organic. It happens almost by chance. There's no major strategic plan. Sometimes it's literally stumbling into these opportunities, because once you start doing something well, and when I think of the top 10 trends that are in the United States, most of them in Europe, the number 5 is hybrid and tech-enhanced fitness experience. And if you've ever seen one of these competitions, there are counting mechanisms, there's timing, so there's a bit of tech there, but it's mostly functional training, it's strength endurance, and it's quite an interesting way to bring people together. And number 2 on the list of the trends is social and community-driven fitness, and Hyrox is the embodiment of that. You could, and we should discuss what was then the primus and the exclusive concept. We're talking about CrossFit, CrossBox, where they also had thousands of clubs. They had the CrossFit Games. And you might ask, right then, CrossFit had a temporary monopoly. And until something else different and better, maybe cheaper, but not necessarily, comes up, perhaps with better marketing, maybe after 10 years, a brand gets a bit tired and somebody's looking for something else. The format, you can get it done in pretty much an hour. That attracts people that are not necessarily so fitness interested, and it's an experience. And I think especially Generation Z are all into experiences. Yes, we in the 70s and 80s also went to concerts. Those were experiences. But It's been wonderful, and just like Milan and Egem, another German company waving the global flag for fitness made here in the DACH region in Germany.
Yeah, very right. And I think we also should include Urban Sports Club into this waving in the global world, because also just bought by the former Gym Pass, and now also known as WellHub. And yeah, also them, of course, into this group. But very interesting that you also mentioned mentioned CrossFit in this context, because a friend of mine, Lucia, she just wrote an article about exactly that. Why did Hyrox achieved so much, and why did kind of CrossFit went down the road at the moment? Yeah, because if you look at it, CrossFit, they were bigger before. They had a big network all around the world. They had their CrossFit games that could be a kind of similar to Hyrox, but not in total, because the way how they make it is very much different. And she made a very good point, I think. And I think that's the one thing why Hyrox is achieving so much, and why CrossFit kind of gets down on the ground at the moment, at least. And she says Hyrox is much more open. It's much more open to everybody. And CrossFit often has the feeling like of being for the elites, because of these all special movements. And when you want to go to these challenges, yeah, then you have to do this perfectly and everything. And Hyrox is just do it. Just do it. Yeah, just do it. Just try it. Just be your own biggest enemy. Yeah, kind of that. And I think this is a very, very important point to say, that Hyrox know how to make the thing easier for the people to use it on the one side, and on the other side, making things easier often makes it more scalable. Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the thing with Hyrox. And I think that will make them even grow more. I think we are not at the end of Hyrox growth so far. There are many countries where not that there are no Hyrox events at the moment, but I'm very sure that they will come. But it would be also interesting to hear your opinion on that. What do you think? Is Hyrox meant to be a worldwide event, like with events in every country, or would you say, yeah, let's say 2 or 3 more years to grow, but when it's done?
Yes, there's already international interest and events in most of the continents around the world. But just like CrossFit's success spawned others, British military fitness, for example. In fact, there is a UK, I'm going to call it version of this social fitness competition concept. I listened in November to a webinar about that, and they're also expanding quickly internationally. So, there are some people that still think, oh, if it's from America, it's great. Things also have switched, using Les Mills as an example, or the other German companies, that a good idea can come from another country, another continent. And the British, who are, because of Brexit, no longer part of the European Union, but still have former colonies and deep relationships in the Middle East and Australia, their former penal colony. So there's a chance that they will get quicker, better, and bigger in those type of markets if a credible alternative is there, where there might be some emotional reasons, maybe also financial, but sometimes it's also, is it an English speaking culture that I want, or is it German speaking culture? Does it matter? But we are all animals that deal with ratio, but also emotion. So if the emotion is out of CrossFit, it's possible in 3 or 5 years, the UK or the Australians or someone in Saudi who, is getting lots of money thrown at it to produce something that's good for the country's image. And just like the golf tournaments that they bought, and bringing professional sports to the Battle of the Sexes in Dubai or in Saudi, you might see unusual places where other alternatives or competition to Hyrox could come.
Yeah, interesting. And I think you're very much right. And also, if you take a look at it, I mean, Hyrox, for example, they have a long-term partnership nowadays with Puma until 2030. So I think Puma, also not the smallest company in the world, believes in Hyrox and really want to partner with them for long term. And I think this is also a sign of that this will be not the end of the road for Hyrox. It is perhaps in the middle or even just only at the beginning of it. So we will see where it will grow. But one thing to end with, at this part at least, if we also look at it from the gym owner perspective, yeah, the one who has to make the decision in the gyms. Many gyms, we already said it, like over 5,000 in the world, already affiliated with Hyrox. Do you think it's nowadays kind of necessary to do that, to have your Hyrox partnership and to have your Hyrox courses to also be successful because of the big demand there is? Or would you say like, yeah, it's not needed. Your people also can prepare for the Hyrox themselves, and you don't need to be part of this network.
Andres, both might be true, but I think speed has become a big factor, leaving egos at the door. And again, Les Mills, of course, you could do your own yoga and step, but original is original. When you go and have a cola, most people would say, I'll have a Coke. Some will say, I have a Pepsi. Very few know Afri Cola or Red Bull Cola. So the original has a certain awareness level. You could argue they have more perfected it than if you have trainers that are told to do it without guidance. The license fees, they used to be 1,000 or 1,250, they're now up to about 3,000. That also attracts people. So it's also a marketing thing. So it's a know-how and a marketing piece together with that trend that we've seen visible, which is the experience piece, the social community piece. And I do believe that when it's a bit tech enhanced, but not too much, that you're still dealing with an instructor, you're dealing with interaction. If the clubs would do a better job of getting members interacting with each other, maybe Hyrox would not have become as big of a thing. So maybe that learning can be good for the core business of the existing health clubs.
Okay, thank you much for your thoughts on that topic. We have a little bit of lack of time, so we will go on now to the next theme. But of course, there is much, much more to say about Hyrox and everything. So, dear listeners, if you want to comment on that, please feel free to comment on the posts we do about this topic and about this episode on LinkedIn, Facebook, and so on. So feel free to comment. We're happy to get in a discussion with you about that. Our next topic, on the next big thing this year and already the years before, to be honest, is the McFit topic, also the nowadays RSG Group. Yeah, we all know Rainer Schaller. He died a few years ago in a plane accident when many things were unclear at the RSG Group, the Rainer Schaller Group. And nowadays, more and more his family, especially his brother Gerd Schaller, is getting influence in the company and is finding his own place into there. But if we look back, yeah, after the accident, at first the two CEOs, Hagen Winkertszahn and Jobst Müller-Trimbusch, first were the co-CEOs then of the company. Yeah, they kind of changed a little bit, I would say, the culture in it. Yeah, from before with Rainer, it was very much influenced by stepping forward, trying new things. Yeah, we already thought with new business models, for example, like Heimat. Yeah, the one big clubs they made that were totally different to the normal McFit clubs we knew before. And also other possibilities like with the McFit models and everything. Other many things that before were invented by Rainer Schaller. Now we were all a little bit let go. There was not so much input into that anymore. And it's more and more take a look at the basic, the core at the end, if you want so, of McFit. And also a few things happened then over the years. They sold to 47 gyms to Basic Fit in the Spanish market. Even a few premium gyms they had there were sold then. They sold also their gyms in the Polish market, I think so, in the past. And they started to kind of modernize their existing core gyms, especially in Germany. If we take a look at the numbers, we also see that they are still kind of the biggest company in Germany according to the members and according to the clubs, to the gyms. CleverFit is bigger, but according to the members, the RSG Group and especially McFit is like the biggest chain in Germany. But on the other side, you also have to see there was no growth anymore in the last few years. Yeah, it's only like a few. I don't know the exact number, but we're talking about one-digit number. How many clubs were opened over the last few years? And if you, on the other side, look at other chains in the German market, you can see they grow very much. They bought much other gyms. They bought like if you look at All Inclusive or the Live Fitness Club, yeah, their growth was very high. And according to that, on the other side, the RSG Group were very much on the same level like we were before. So if we all take a look at all of that and if all of these numbers, what is your opinion on McFit? What is happening there at the moment? Perhaps you also have a little bit insights, but a little bit it seems like that McFit kind of has enough. They just don't want to grow anymore, or what is happening here?
Well, first of all, never underestimate someone just based on what they've done or not done within the fitness industry. There are successful examples of people that have done other things and they look at fitness and they have a different perspective, a different approach, and can be successful. It doesn't have to be successful, but there are good examples there. So, we want to give him a chance to put his imprint on there. And music plays a big role in our business. So, being more in tune to music is not a bad thing. The fact that he's dealing with an orchestra means he's working with a team. Now, the team he's working with just have different instruments in their hands, a kettlebell instead of a violin. I think that it was also a little bit too far reaching the 16 different brands that the McFit group then had. They were trying all kinds of things. You mentioned some of them. John Reed has not been successful everywhere. They've had to close some of their clubs. Jack and Jill, a group training, High Five, a small functional training center. They had their own video productions. They've had their influencers. So maybe some of those things were nice to play around with and see, but they weren't really scalable. Maybe there was nobody inside that owned those. And you throw stuff at the wall and you see what sticks. Cyber aerobics, another one. I remember being in that headquarters in Alexanderplatz. It was amazing, but it wasn't making any money. And at some point, somebody has to step up and say, what is our core business? What are things that are distracting us? And in that time, others were growing by staying in their lane and by focusing on their core business. It certainly wasn't the core business of McFit to be in the franchise business, but come COVID, they threw, I'm going to say, a Hail Mary offer out, and were probably surprised that they actually won, picking up 600 locations for 100 million, and that has stayed around. That's actually enhanced the McFit brand, the Reiner Schaller Group brand, in 60 different countries. So maybe, and Procter and Gamble do the same thing, they don't mind failing 5 or 8 or 12 times if that number 9 or 15 more than compensates, that they get a home run. The product lifestyle curve. If you get the trend early enough, that's where you make the most money. not at the top when everybody gets in, prices go down and there's heavy competition. So if they reduce also the countries, you mentioned Spain, getting out of Spain, Fitness First used to be in some of those markets and they got out of those markets. There's a story about the people from Basic Fit going to England trying to pitch the UK Fitness First to buy the Sports City. They had Health City was their upper mid-level brand and Basic Fit. And they went there hoping to successfully sell their business. And what happened was exactly the opposite. The British Fitness First said, no, you buy our business. And that's exactly what happened because the two of them became one in the Netherlands. And then in the sense of what interests me, the fallacies that I said yesterday, the direct translation from German, was interessiert mich mein Schmarren von gestern, then they said, well, we have enough to deal with now. That'll be all. Because I said, well, Fitness First is in Belgium, they're in France. 18 months later, they took over 3 more countries. So, some of these things are not long-term strategic. It's seat of the pants, CEO, entrepreneurial, seeing an opportunity to say, we're going to go for it or we're not going to go for it. But if you're becoming, the head of a big and growing company, you don't earn your pay by just sitting back and waiting. You have to take bets. You have to make choices. Sometimes it's a genius, and sometimes, like Jack and Jill or High Five, maybe it costs them a little bit of pocket change for them, a couple million, 5 million, 10 million. Maybe they're able to offload some things, but there was also learning involved in that maybe helps them as they move forward. And also the last thought is some of those projects were ego projects. Going into Los Angeles with the Heimat brand, which has not been replicated anywhere else. It cost them $50 million to build. They have $350 per month memberships. But I don't think in retrospect it was financially successful, but it perhaps was brand awareness. But I would also argue that 80% of the people don't know that Heimat is part of the Gerd Schaller Group. So
That's
is there a
right.
synergy there? I don't know.
That's right. I think I have to correct you on one thing. There was one replication of Heimat in Paris, where a second time where they did it, but that's it. So two is also not a very big number to talk about. But we had a second try for them on the European market in Paris. But yeah, we all see it, like you said, it's not really the people, if they go there, they don't see it as part of RSG, as part of McFit, as part of Gerd Schaller also. So it's very different. It cannot be compared to all of the rest. And yeah, I'm thinking also that you're right, yeah, because many of these projects, they look very much like Rainer as head of the company, as 100% shareholder, of course said, okay, this is my thing, this is my baby, and I want to do with that what I want because it's also my money. And he's right in that. Yeah, if you own the place, if everything is yours, as if you know other investors inside or so, of course you can do whatever you want because it's your decision how much money you want to get out of it or not, and how much you are willing to let inside to get into your own projects because you want to do it. You said one interesting thing also about the Gold Gym brand. Yeah, the one big brand they bought during the Corona time. You said it 100 million. Many people said at that time was kind of very less money for this big brand they got. But this remembered me a little bit of all the things you said. Yeah, Gold Gym, they were very much only kind of a name anymore. Yeah, they didn't had like a basic thing together. They didn't were one kind of gym. I mean, if you look at the German gym market, if you look at Clever Fit, that we will talk later about, or also of Easy Fitness, Body Street, and so on, yeah, all these franchises. And if you go into one of these places, you don't need the logo to see that you are in this place. Yeah, same like with Starbucks and McDonald's and so on. And but if you would go to a Gold's Gym, you would not know it if you don't see the logo. Yeah, you would not know it. Even I understood last time when I talked to someone, I forgot to who it was. Even the logo sometimes was different from one Gold's Gym to another one. And then we think about what you just said. Yeah, there has to be a transformation at the end to bring everything again together, to bring everything on a common status, if you want so. Is I think perhaps the right step at the moment, the right step that already the two CEOs, Hagen Winterzahn and Jobst Müller-Trimbusch, already went on to do this kind of stuff, to see, okay, we have to now stabilize the company, we have to go to bring it now on one level. And then we can perhaps go on. And perhaps this is also the strategy that Gerd Schaller, the brother of Rainer Schaller, is now following and just joining into. But perhaps let us take a look on the future of the RSG Group, because I think that's very also interesting. Because you can also you can always ask the question, if they do such kind of stuff, if they kind of trying to stabilize the company in all, if they're trying to also make it more like one company, like similar, the gyms getting similar to each other, the gyms getting modernized and everything, that also can be seen as a signal that they perhaps try to sell it in the future. I mean, Gerd Schaller, we don't know how connected he is to the fitness industry. If it's just an asset for him, that would be okay. I mean, it's his now, and his father's, of course, also. Of course, they can perhaps sell it in the future, perhaps to an investor, perhaps they send it to the share market, we don't know. But would you say it looks more like that they perhaps will sell it in the future? Perhaps to another big chain, perhaps to a big chain from the US, but tries to get into the European fitness market? Or do you think more it will stay its own, it will stay with the Schaller family?
Well, just like Werner Fitzenmeyer in the Mannheim-Schwetzingen area, it's certainly possible that they retreat from their, except for Gold's Gym, from their international ambitions and just try to defend their territory in their home market, Germany. That's a realistic possibility when you think of their investing to make the look and feel of existing clubs in Germany a reality. So, these people are talking to everybody else. That's, I'm sure that Planet Fitness has been knocking on the door. And, the brother of Rainer Schaller, he doesn't have to know these people. They'll find him. They've already knocked on the door. And, it's possible that it needs to fester a little bit. Maybe the rumor mill starts going and then people start talking about it. Maybe there's some funds that maybe are not yet active in this market, but they say that's an attractive market and they want to find some synergy. So Pure Gym might be another one, not in Germany. You mentioned an American company that's generally considered to be Planet Fitness. It's possible that Basic Fit had also knocked on the door, maybe at the wrong time. You don't underestimate timing plays a big role, being in the right place at the right time. Sympathies play a role when you think about why a club owner who's 60 or 65 years old would sell to the LifeFit Group or AI. Some of that is sympathies. If the price is about the same, oh, I want my staff to stay on. Oh, I want my members to be treated, in the future the way I treat them, which is a little bit of a wish thinking. But it's, you have to let go of your baby when you sell your baby. But maybe they have a 3 or 5 year clause for key management to keep it that way. But generally speaking, when there's a takeover of a club, 50 to 100% of the members and staff get turned over. So that can happen. Is there strength in the McFit brand? Yes. Cooperation such as with, I think it's with Lidl or Aldi, I think it is, where you can buy a membership on the cash register. Is it firing? Is the app that Aldi has being considered to be used because it's a bigger brand, arguably also globally? Just as an anecdote to that thought, 2 examples. There is a chain of clubs in Portugal where within the group, which have shopping centers and construction interests, publicly traded company, they have a supermarket chain. And there's a supermarket chain cooperation with the clubs. Example two, I'm writing a story on this one, Jim's Fitness in Belgium. They also have entered into the Dutch market. They're owned by the largest supermarket chain in Belgium. And they've grown this year from 37 to 87 clubs. So they've more than doubled. And sometimes when you talk about, someone who's not from the sector coming in, they might be able to think differently. We're not thinking cooperation with supermarkets. I had a call this week with Marcus Raulich from the Medical Fitness Initiative. And there's a lot of potential there with the movement towards longevity. Maybe the McFit target group is not looking for longevity, but the people that have grown up working out there, they're now 40, 45 years old. Maybe they are before they go to another place that serve it. Maybe that could be an area where the Rainer Schaller Group could make some waves, because right now nobody owns the longevity space, but everybody wants to go there. Pure speculation on my part.
Yeah, interesting thought. I would say my bet will be that in the nearby future, let's say the next 5 years until 2030, that they will be sold. That would be my bet. But like you said, it doesn't have to be like that. Perhaps they change the way they go. Perhaps it was just a wrong time when Basic Fit knocked on the doors and asked for it. And where we also come to the next topic with Basic Fit, because as perhaps many of you listeners already know, they bought the biggest German franchise chain in the market, CleverFit. And CleverFit, we all know it. Yeah, it's at the moment like with almost 500 gyms all around the world, mostly Europe. They have approximately like 1 million members in all of their franchise gyms. Most, of course, very much like RSG Group, are in Germany, 406 studios there, then followed by Austria and Switzerland, and also in Slovenia, Romania, Croatia, and the Czech Republic. And I also take a look at their financial status at the moment. Their earnings before interest and taxes were around 14.5 million euros. Yeah, so let's say it was a good number for a franchise company. And they also, a little bit, like the RSG Group under Rainer Schaller, went new ways. They had their market entry into the US market. They went to Los Angeles. They opened a club called the Fred. Of course, connected to also here the founder of CleverFit. And but besides that, we also don't hear much about this market entry anymore after the first club was opened. And then the next big news in the year was they were sold to Basic Fit for a number of 160 million euros. Very big number, even more than the gold gyms once cost for the RSG Group. And there were much more gold gyms around the world when there are CleverFit gyms. But of course, CleverFit, we already talked a bit, were much more into the typical way these kind of franchise studios should be. Although not much differences between the gyms, were very much on the line. They had also a very big growth so far, over the years. They had a slow start at the beginning. They did their first tryouts in the gyms like around, I think, 2004, 2007, something like that. And then 2012 opened their 100th club in Europe. And now, just 3 years ago in 2022, they had a big milestone with opening the 500th gym in their collection. And it looks at the end very good. 500 to achieve. Now they seem to be a little bit under 500 again, but around that point. they now getting be sold, and Alfred Enzensberger, the founder of the company, now like made his own baby, if you want, so to gold, and can now do whatever he wants. He's, as far as I know, he by this at the moment he sold the company, he also went out of the company, so he's not in charge anymore. There's no agreement of him being into the management anymore. So he now can enjoy his life with this big amount of money, and really made his thing there. Perhaps we will hear from him again. Perhaps he has new plans to put into charge again. But let's take a look back at the Clever Fit chain and the Basic Fit there now. I mean, Basic Fit, mainly they are really run by the headquarter, they are their own gyms they have, mostly in Europe, but a few franchises already were there. Now they have, like with Clever Fit, bought the biggest franchise chain in Europe, and that makes them themselves the biggest franchise chain in Europe now, Basic Fit. And how you think it will be in the future? Especially the question is, will there be Clever Fits still? Will they all get Basic Fits? And how will that get together with their own gyms that they run their own and the gyms that they run with their franchisees?
Well, Andreas, just prepared for that question, I have with me my crystal ball. And I'm putting my hands around the crystal ball to be able to answer that question. You're asking me what will happen in the future? I think I've just got an answer from my crystal ball. There were a couple meetings that have taken place. The annual meeting where it was announced, and then there was a larger meeting as well in the Netherlands. And between the beginning of the typical, oh, we love Clever Fit, and we're coming in because you've got such a great team, and we're looking forward to keeping the brand, switching over to extolling the virtues of becoming a Basic Fit. And then in the Dutch meeting that took place, there were some Clever Fit operators within the group. You have some of the Clever Fit master franchisees for regional that have maybe 5 or 10 or 20 or 30 locations that are in the pecking order, more important than the individual ones. So what we've been hearing from various sources is the Clever Fit people came to the Netherlands thinking that they are going to be able to, keep the Clever Fit brand and to keep the, what has been happening going. And we're in some cases surprised at the speed with which Basic Fit wants to, I'm going to use the word intentionally, encourage them to become a Basic Fit. They've already been published expectations to have at least 100 of the Clever Fits rebranded to Basic Fit by the end of 2026. So they've put down, this is what we plan to be doing. Secondly, for those that want to stay, there are possibilities, but it's going to be made harder for them. So there'll be probably by 2027 a very clear direction where there will be a branding shift among those that want to see the light. And seeing the light means one of two things. It means either in the small version or the larger version to rebrand to Clever Fit. And the other option is to sell the club to Basic Fit. And that's what Basic Fit is also very interested in, why they're paying, I'm going to guess, 300,000-400,000 per franchise location that they don't own, because they have inside information, they have a revenue stream, and their rebranding costs in the packages are somewhere between 125,000 and 250,000 euros, including the cameras in the expensive piece, the simpler version. There are a number of the Clever Fit operators that are not so liquid that they can just say, yes, we'll do 125 or 250. there are some that still feel more loyal to the CleverFit brand. So there's going to be some friction in the next 1 to 2 years as push comes to shove. You know, there will be some demonstrative moves by Basic-Fit to compel the people to accept there's a different way of doing business now that we own the franchise. And there will be, I think, 3 or 5 or 10 very important strategic acquisitions of some of the important players to get the ball rolling. And once the ball's rolling, then it's all downhill from there in a positive sense for Basic-Fit. And then, unfortunately, and this is my personal estimation, if you're hanging on to CleverFit, the terms are going to get worse and worse each time. Maybe Basic-Fit, to teach someone a lesson, will open up a club across the street. I've seen it happen. You've seen it happen. So there's a lot of pushing and shoving going on, negotiation, different tactics being used. We're already seeing them, and the honeymoon is almost not even over.
Yeah, it's very interesting to hear from Bert. And yeah, you're right. I think we just can take a look at other franchise chains all around the world. I'm especially thinking of McDonald's, for example, where they're also having like both. Yeah, they're having like their own, the restaurants that run by their own, but they also have the restaurants run by franchisees. And we also saw conflicts there in the past, yeah, when perhaps some of the franchisees were too good or kind of tried to get independent or so, and then McDonald's also showed them their power, and showed them, okay, this is here an end. We don't go any further. Otherwise, you can feel what a big company is can be. Yeah? And yeah, this is, I think, a very, very important thing. And this also, of course, gets us to the question, how many will at the end really go the way, yeah? Really will change to a basic fit, because basic fit and clever fit, they are similar, but there are also differences. I mean, basic fit, I would say they're kind of cheaper also at the end as the most clever fit gym. So that would also mean a decrease in sales. Yeah, in the money you're earning every month. Also, I think a little bit things that they are offering are also different between clever fits and basic fit. So it's not like an easy change. You're not just easy change. You're not just changing the logo at the entry and that's it. You have to change more. You said it yourself. There's a high amount of investigation you have to do for that. So it will be interesting to see. We also already saw, I mean, we both following the different communities, also the digital communities, and where you already can read people from CleverFit trying to get together and wanting to have a discussion about what can be done in the future and if they perhaps want to stay or not. This will be an interesting future. So could be kind of an estimation how much really will go the way. My personal opinion on that, but perhaps you can also say it. I would not be surprised if there would be a high amount of CleverFit franchisees, especially the ones that only have like 1 or 2 gyms, would not want to go the way and would decide to go perhaps their own way or somehow perhaps try to stay at the CleverFit brand. And especially the ones with more gyms, yeah, you said it, like where even people with like 30 gyms and more in this group, I think would be very open to go this way with Basic Fit, because you also have to see that I think Clever Fit in the last few years, they didn't really stepped forward. They didn't really had a way to go and you could not really, how to say, you could not really see a development in the last few years, I would say. I think they just stayed where they are. Yeah? They grow still, besides RSG, they still had growth in the numbers they had. But if you looked at the gym, if you looked at the development of the gym, if you looked at what they offered to the people, for example, think of Hyrox or so, there was no changes. Yeah, it seems like they stayed at what they had, but they didn't make a development. And especially if you now look at Basic Fit, totally other company, totally other environment also you're into. I think they're very much at the market and they are very open to new stuff as long as it can be sold, of course. Yeah? And so you can at least be sure as a franchisee that you will get something good there, that you can see a development there. And so it will be interesting to see. My estimation would be that I think 25% of all the clever fits will not get to basic fit, perhaps even more. This is my estimation, of course. Perhaps everything will come totally different. We will see. What would you say? What do you think? How much do they really switch into basic fits and how much would like to stay or even leave the brand?
Oh, I think that that's very fluid. This was not something that many people knew about. It happened fairly confidentially, first part. Having said that, listening with your ear to the ground, I'm going to recall in February of 2024, I was at the Beyond Active event in Riyadh, and the head of Basic Fit Expansion International was there, and also one on the management team of McFit. Independent of each other, two talks right behind each other, they both said they plan to be expanding through franchise. And that was 18 months, 19 months before the Basic Fit Clever Fit. So they already were announcing to a group of several hundred people from around the world. There were maybe only about 25 or 30 Europeans there, but I was in the audience and I was listening. And I heard, on both their sides in remarkable frankness, thinking that I'm not in my home market, I can tell this. They also want to plant seeds, like the RSG Group said they are interested in franchise in smaller markets or markets that they're not really in, like France. They have seen what L'Orange Bleu, Keep Cool with 400, 300 locations, France expanding into Spain. They saw the writing on the wall, so they said other people's money. Franchises working with other people's money is the way to go. And this is the first time that Basic Fit pretty much has launched in that direction. But if you've ever been on any of these quarterly calls, Basic Fit's a publicly traded company, they have alluded to some other franchise, and this is partly to refinance the CleverFit deal. They're going to be trying to offload some of their own Basic Fit clubs in France, and with those monies, paying back the banks that they needed to make the sale possible with CleverFit. So that's where you see there are different moving parts. What they're saying in their home market is maybe different than what they're saying at an event. What they're announcing at the event might happen, might not happen, but it was creating an opportunity for conversations to happen because they're announcing, hey, this is what we're doing. Come talk to us.
Yeah, very interesting thing. Sometimes we also know things need time until they really happen. Like you see with the Congress you were 1.5 years ago, and when after this amount of time where you could be thinking like, doesn't seem like Basic Fit want to go into franchises or any more, and now we bought Clever Fit. So there is definitely a progress. We will see where we will both go together, or perhaps with one or two franchises also going their own way. We will see. Will be a very interesting year to come. 2006 is now 2026 is now, yeah, almost reached when we produce with podcast, when it will be live on air, when it will be already 2026. So the question also stands now, what we can expect from 2026. Hans, what is your thinking about if you look at the new year, if you look at the fitness industry? What are your expectations?
There are a number of organizations like the American Council of Sports Medicine or ACE, HFA, that come up with top 10 lists. These are the top 10 trends. And when you follow it over 5 or 10 years, you see the movement in the list. Some new things come on, some others come off. So let me share one top 10 list and then we can discuss it. Number one, reformer Pilates. Number two, social and community-driven fitness. We talked about Hyrox. Number three, wearables has been on the list for many years. Number four, holistic and mind-body. Number five, hybrid and tech-enhanced fitness experiences. Eris is an example of that. Number six, which some might argue should be in the top five, strength training, making a big resurgence, big importance. Also talking about elderly population, sarcopenia. Women, for the first time, less than 50% of all the members. There's a 20-year trend that there's less women coming in the clubs. Could be worth a discussion. Then functional mobility, particularly for older population. And this is not only in the health clubs, but it's in the rehab facilities. It's in hotels. It's on cruise liners, where they say that target group, what do they want and need? Because the silver nature of the aging population, if they want, probably should be in the top five, longevity. What they're talking about is, I want to be able to take care of myself. I want to be mobile. I want to be able to play pickleball or padel when I get older with my friends, social. So I think those are some of the ones, and probably the use of AI has to be in the top 10 now. That is catapulted in terms of importance from 2, 3 years ago. Nobody had heard about it to ChatGPT. Of course, I use it several times a day. Of course, it's permeated all industries and all companies and changed the way business processes work. So when we talk about that, I recall something that Melissa Rodriguez, she was the research manager of IRSA, now HFA, and still is a very good researcher. She was talking about all of the technology that's out there will help, but we still are primarily a human delivered product. And we don't want to forget that the humans create the emotional connections, the physical connections, until, might take 2 or 3 or 5 years, AI can create that, looking through people's profiles and saying, oh, let's get all the runners together. That a person just has to give the prompt and it gets organized, and then the people join into the conversation and the process when those things are set up. So I do think that AI is going to transform how different club chains in different categories are interacting with prospects, members, former members, in groups, individuals, touching some of those top 10 themes that we talked about.
Very interesting, and thank you very much for presenting the trends of the American College of Sports Medicine. Very interesting always to see it every year. I think it's also good to know that these trends are based on a questionnaire of mostly personal trainers, the coaches of gym courses and everything. So mostly the people that are really into training with our customers. So of course, it's a little bit biased on the space, but I think also the ACSM knows that, yeah. But of course, they perhaps sometimes, like you say, it's a little bit surprising that AI is not into it, but it could be, I think, also because of the group you are asking. And if you would ask like a gym owner and would be only the gym owners, or if you even would ask only the CEOs of the big chain of the fitness industry, I think you would get much more people who say, hey, AI is like our most important trend we have at the moment in the fitness industry, like everywhere in the world. And like in every industry, also, I think when you would have get it on a much higher level. But what we can see, I think, over the time, and this also is a little bit connecting to what you said. Yeah, with wearable technologies, with mobile exercises apps, with data-driven technology, you also have these trends more and more in the top 10 that are connected to all these technology
Logical.
themes. Yeah. And I think it's just a case of how much understanding there is for these things, that it's of course based on their training they mostly have, not so high in these target group that had been part of the questionnaire, then you have it perhaps in other areas. But very, very interesting to hear. I think we will hear much more about all of these stuff, especially at the next FIBO coming in April. I think, as far as I heard it so far, longevity will be a big part of it. Yeah, we will have a big area. Also, like we did last year, connecting to the wellness and hotel area again. I think this is a very interesting connection. And also, of course, all the other stuff, Reformer, Pilates, and so on, will be have a big role into the FIBO, and also, of course, into the other congresses that we have next year. I mean, FIBO is, of course, from the German perspective, the biggest one, but we know that we are also in the US, the big global events. We have in Amsterdam, I think, again next year, the big event. So we will see where what themes will get there on the table and what will also happen in the next years, and especially in case of. I think that is also always being a surprise. Who buys who in the next year? We saw many M&As in 2025, and in 2026, I don't think it will really stop. It will go on. Perhaps we will even have big consultations then, yeah, like the one with Basic Fit and Clever Fit, where others can come. I'm looking, of course, also at the RSG Group. I'm looking at Basic Fit because there are also rumors of perhaps other companies even are interested in Basic Fit. We will see what will happen there now when they already have been bought Clever Fit. But it will be a very interesting year. So I'm looking forward, and I'm looking also forward to see you again, then, Hans, at all of these big events. Who wants to see where Hans is can always do that by following him on the LinkedIn channel. I think it's the best way to follow you and to get in contact with you. I think we also get in contact via LinkedIn once, so it's a very good way to try to connect you. And to everybody out there, also want to say, like always, we have, of course, a lack of time in one of these podcasts. We cannot discuss it so deeply as we perhaps would like to discuss it. That's why I invite you to get into discussion with us. Like I already said, please comment onto this episode. Please comment in especially LinkedIn, but also the other social medias that are out there, so that we can have a discussion about all these three themes and perhaps other themes. Perhaps you say there's something that you two totally forgot, one really important thing that you perhaps even did not see. You never know, yeah? Perhaps something that was hidden, but is also very interesting to know. Then please get in the discussion with us. We are very happy to discuss with you on every channel possible. And we invite you, of course, on that. And also, I would invite you to please follow this podcast for more on. It will not be the last episode we will do here. Now, of course, in English. I hope. I don't know. I know I'm not a mother tongue, so my English is not as good as Hans, of course, but I'm practicing, and I hope everything was clear and followable as a listener. So I very much invite you to, of course, follow the podcast for more. And also, please rate the podcast on every channel possible. I'm very, very happy to hear from you. Also, with critical points you perhaps have, just tell them to us. We want to get better here, and then we can use that critic for future episodes and can get even more to what you would like to hear. So now, as per our tradition, the final words of the podcast belong, like always, to my guest, Hans. What is the one message you would like to leave to our global listeners now?
Well, thank you, Andreas, for inviting me and giving me the last word. I reflect in the last 6 weeks, having been in hotels in Sweden, in Egypt, and hearing at events what the different chains are doing. I'll give you some examples. Hilton's 5 feet to fitness in their suites that are a bit bigger, having fitness equipment there so you don't have to leave your room if you're interested, but you're too lazy to go down to the club, the hotel gym. Marriott provides a screen where you can do 6 different workouts without having to leave your room. There's all kinds of hybrid opportunities coming. We didn't talk about Peloton, but Peloton is also expanding their business model. So we're seeing people interested in exploring other spaces, like we saw with the Reiner Schaller Group and their different offshoot concepts. They might work, they might not. I applaud the German companies. We talked about Hyrox. We mentioned eGym. Certainly, Milan is part of that are waving the German flag and are also showing innovations that don't necessarily come from the United States. They might be inspired there. Or Les Mills from New Zealand, conquering the globe in competence and group exercise, solving problems for owners to have consistent quality. And the consistency of delivery, I think, will be more possible now with the technology tools that we have in our hands. And just as our industry has become mainstream and investors are looking to invest in our market, that a lot of money people are willing to spend, blood tests, other longevity biomarkers, provides us with hope that we can raise the average yield per month per member by offering more services that they value so that we don't have to be only being the cheapest person, because people want more than just the cheapest thing, the solution that's right for them. And if the clubs can identify that and serve them, I think we're going to have the next, not 1 year, but 5 years, a golden time in our industry. And I look forward to following that and celebrating their successes.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I hope I see you all again in the next episode of Hashtag Fitness Industry. Bye bye.